Welcome to The Explainer. Now, in the footballing world, loyalty is pretty much treated as a sacred oath, right? But what actually happens when your raw talent outgrows your childhood allegiance? Today, we're unpacking a truly incredible story. We're looking at a boyhood fan who literally crossed football's absolute fiercest divide to become an undeniable icon. This is the Kenny Dalglish story.
It is the ultimate football paradox. Seriously, how does a die-hard Rangers fan, someone who grew up breathing the blue side of Glasgow, ultimately become one of the greatest legends in the history of Celtic Football Club? The Old Firm divide isn't just a rivalry. It's a historically complex battle deeply rooted in the city's cultural and religious fabric. Crossing that line? No way. That's not for the faint of heart. So how on earth did a kid with Rangers posters plastered on his bedroom wall end up wearing the famous green and white hoops?
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The Boy from Ibrox.
Picture the visual irony here for a second. Young Kenny Dalglish grows up in Govan, Glasgow. From his bedroom window in a newly built tower block, he could literally look out and see Rangers Ibrox Stadium staring right back at him. He was raised as a Protestant in a staunchly Rangers-supporting household, and his dad took him to their games from a very early age. He was right there in the shadow of the club he absolutely idolized. But, surprisingly, despite his massive talent as an aspiring young footballer, that fateful call from his boyhood heroes just never came.
Section 2. Choosing Celtic over Rangers. So, Celtic's legendary manager, Jock Stein, actually spotted this young talent playing for a local boys team. Stein sends his assistant, Sean Fallon, to go secure the youngster's signature. And Fallon wasn't messing around. He famously interrupted his own family holiday just to drive over to the Dalglish household. This sets up one of the most brilliant, laugh-out-loud anecdotes in all of Scottish football history. Imagine the panic. Sean Fallon arrives at the house, and young Kenny, knowing the Celtic assistant manager is about to step into his room, has to sprint upstairs and frantically tear down all those Rangers posters from his walls. He absolutely didn't want anything jeopardizing this incredible opportunity, even if it meant hiding his lifelong allegiances. And it was actually his father, Bill Dalglish, who provided some ultimate clarity here. Looking completely past that fierce city rivalry, his dad offered some incredibly pragmatic advice. He just said, "Son, the best place for you right now is at Celtic." It was a purely football-focused decision, and frankly, a brilliant one. They recognized that Celtic, who were on the verge of becoming the very first British team to win the European Cup, offered an absolutely unmatched environment for a young player to develop. From there, Celtic really methodically managed his development. He signed provisional forms in May 1967, which is literally the exact same month Celtic's famous Lisbon Lions won the European Cup. But Stein knew Kenny needed to toughen up a bit, so he was farmed out to Cumbernauld United to play against grown men, and he ended up scoring 37 goals. By 1968, he was back at Celtic Park as a full professional, and by 1971, he had completely cemented his place as a first-team regular. Talk about a rapid rise.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Quality Street Gang.
You see, Dalglish didn't just develop in a vacuum. He was part of an incredible incubator of talent that fans affectionately called the Quality Street Gang. Technically, this was Celtic's reserve team, but honestly, calling them reserves feels like an insult. We're talking about a squad with names like Lou Macari, Danny McGrain, and Davy Hay. These guys were so phenomenally good that they were the highest scorers in all of British reserve football. During one season, Kenny netted 43 goals, and his teammates, Lou Macari and Vic Davidson, scored over 90 each. Training with the Lisbon Lions every single day, this young group pushed each other to absolute greatness.
And boy, did they have a competitive streak, especially when playing against Rangers. There's this amazing story where Celtic's reserves actually needed to beat Rangers' reserves by 8 whole goals just to qualify in a cup section. Manager Jock Stein walks into the dressing room and drops a massive incentive, a £20-a-head bonus if they pull it off. Hearing that, a young Kenny Dalglish literally sprints to the bathroom, rallying his teammates by screaming, "Come on, we've got to frickin' win this." The final result? A staggering 12-1 victory. That elite winning mentality was already firmly in place.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how he transitioned to the main stage. Section 4. Becoming a Celtic legend.
That fierce reserve team mentality translated absolutely seamlessly to the biggest stage in Scottish football. Fast forward to August 14, 1971. It's Celtic against Rangers at Ibrox. Dalglish is handed penalty duties in front of a completely hostile crowd against his former boyhood club. And what does he do? The pressure is immense, but he calmly pauses, bends down to tie his shoelaces, and then coolly slots the ball home for his first competitive Celtic goal. It was a staggering display of composure. You've got over 70,000 people screaming, and he treated it like a Sunday kickabout in the park. He proved right there for sure that he belonged on the big stage.
From that moment on, his footprint at Celtic was just massive. He went on to make an astonishing 320 appearances for the club in the green and white hoops. He wasn't just a regular player, you know. He quickly became the absolute focal point of the entire team.
During those 320 appearances, he delivered a remarkable 167 goals. What's absolutely crucial to understand here is that Dalglish essentially carried Celtic through a really tough transitional period as the legendary Lisbon Lions were beginning to retire. He was so vital, so incredibly important to the team's success that by 1975, they awarded him the captaincy. He could play in midfield, he could play up front. The guy was basically the ultimate footballing Swiss Army knife.
Sean Fallon really summed it up perfectly with this quote. Dalglish wasn't the fastest runner out there, and he certainly wasn't the strongest physically, but his speed of thought, completely unrivaled. It was like he could read the game 2 or 3 steps ahead of everyone else on the pitch. That crazy high footballing IQ is exactly what made him the absolute heartbeat of Celtic.
Section 5. Record transfer to Liverpool.
By 1977, despite having immense domestic success in Scotland, Dalglish had this burning ambition to win the European Cup. He basically decided it was time for a new challenge. Jock Stein desperately wanted to keep him, obviously, but realizing Kenny's mind was completely made up, he offered this colorful, classic Stein farewell. "Have it your way, you wee bastard. I might know somebody that would be happy to meet you." And that somebody, well, it was Bob Paisley, manager of the reigning European champions, Liverpool.
To pry him away from Glasgow, Liverpool literally had to shatter the British transfer record, paying £440,000. Now, to put that into perspective for the time, it was a massive gamble for both the club and the player. Dalglish was being brought in to replace Kevin Keegan, Liverpool's ultimate talisman who had just left for Hamburg. The pressure was totally immense. Plus, leaving Celtic really broke the hearts of the fans who had adored him for years.
This brilliantly illustrates the incredible contrast in his 2 legendary eras. At Celtic, he achieved total domestic dominance. But down at Liverpool, he finally realized those huge European ambitions, securing 3 European Cups alongside 6 English League titles. He didn't just replace Kevin Keegan, you know? He arguably eclipsed him, even scoring the winning goal in a European Cup final at Wembley during his very first season. Just unbelievable.
And of course, we can't forget his massive international footprint. While he was busy dominating club football on both sides of the border, he also achieved immortal status for his country. He earned a staggering 102 caps and scored 30 goals for Scotland. That makes him the nation's most capped player and joint all-time top scorer right alongside Dennis Law.
Which brings us to a really fascinating final thought. If loyalty is football's ultimate currency, how did one man become a king in 2 totally different kingdoms? Kenny Dalglish defied the tribalism of his youth to become a Celtic great, and then he defied the massive pressure of a record transfer to become an undisputed Liverpool legend. It really just goes to show that true, undeniable footballing genius has a funny way of rewriting all the rules. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the impossible.